Let's start this train. Let's start this bus. Let's start this fun journey. Hey everyone, welcome to another Every Other Wednesday. Happy September 8th, 2021, in case you're confused as to what year it is. It is official Iguana Awareness Day, so I hope everybody is excited. Yeah, I hope everyone's excited.
I did not know that, and I don't do many impersonations, but I do an iguana impersonation, and I would like to now share that because it's just appropriate. Ready? Here we go. Thank you. I'm here all week.
Please, applause from the gallery, please, for the talented Sanjay Nath, a man of many faces.
All right, so let's get this
started. Hey everyone, my name is Michael Kerr, coming to you from the Canadian Rockies. Sanjay, tell us about yourself.
My name is Sanjay Nath, and I am from a suburb of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, called Oakville. And Richard?
And my name is Richard Haddon, and today this is our first truly international overseas edition because I'm coming to you from my brother-in-law's house in the village of Biddenden in the south of England. It's about a 2-hour drive from Heathrow Airport. Ask me how I know. And we are here visiting family, and then we are going up to Scotland tomorrow to visit our daughter for 10 days. And we haven't seen her in over a year, so we are thrilled about that. But here I am. Thank you to brother-in-law David for letting me use his office.
And missing today is Jeff Coe, based out of Pittsburgh, and we will make fun of him because he's not here.
Right, because he's not here. That's very cool, Richard. You know, Kerr, as a Kerr, my heritage goes back to Scotland. We were Scottish border thieves. And when I was last in Scotland, we visited the Kerr Castle.
You stole the border? Well,
we stole I think we tried to rob people at the border.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, you see, Haddon is also a Scottish name. Now, my wife she was born and raised in Scotland and lived there until she was an adult. And when we got married, she wasn't sure if she was going to use my last name or not. But then when she saw that it was a Scottish name and her maiden name was not, in fact, a Scottish name, even though she was born and raised in Scotland, she said, yeah, I think I'll take your name if you'll let me have it. So yeah, that's how it went out.
In case the two of you were wondering, my last name Nath is not Scottish.
Not Scottish.
Yeah. It's Matt Nath. Okay.
Mucknath. Mucknath.
All right.
So your wife actually wanted more Scot cred. That's why she basically did that, to up her cred game. Hey, so speaking of, as we segue into today's topic, speaking of brother-in-laws and visiting family and daughters and spouses, and, rather a timely topic since many of us have been, working alongside our families this last year and a half. And by the way, we decided we're going to make this a COVID pandemic-free program. It will be like the word that shall not be spoken. Let's just take a day off from this. We're going to talk about the importance of connecting, or even let's ask that question: is there an important aspect of connecting with family members of employees? Why might that matter? How might organizations do that? Can that help build a stronger culture? So let's just start with that broad question, gentlemen, and I would love some commentary in the chat box. Do you think it matters? Should we try to make an effort to connect with the family members of our employees, of our teammates?
And I'm going to jump in as people are typing in there, and that is that this idea, this notion of looking at the employee or the team member as a holistic human being rather than just an employee has gained traction over the last 34 years, but we're understanding it's how vital it is. Because if you've just had a massive blowout with your significant other and you're supposed to now come to your job and put in 100%, you just can't do it. As a human being, you are integrated. And the more we can integrate the whole body, mind and soul and however you view that, the more productive of an employee you're going to get.
Yeah. And I heard it said by someone wiser than any of the three of us. I don't think it was Jeff either, but I heard somebody say at one point, when you hire a person, you really hire a family. In essence, and then there are people who will say, well, there should be a line that is drawn, and I agree, there should be. And some employees do not want you to have much of a connection with their family. And of course, you have to respect that. You want to respect that. But I think so rather than saying in general, do you want to connect with your employees' families? I think clearly, universally, you must acknowledge that your employee is part of some family. And, families look different in all places, there's a lot of different varieties of families. But yeah, to acknowledge that your employee does not just, cease to exist and then poof, pop up at work or else on the Zoom screen doing their work, that they do exist as part of a family.
Contrary to what a lot of elementary school kids believe when they see their teacher at the mall, they're like, "You're at the mall?
Yeah.
Like, I thought you lived under the desk."
I know. My mother was a teacher, and she told many, many stories of people who would look at her and say,
"Yeah, wasn't it weird? It was so weird to see them out of their element." I remember seeing my grade 6 teacher smoking behind the school once, and it was like, "Oh, Mrs. Robertson, what are you doing?"
The fact that she had to do it behind the school, though, is particularly interesting, Mike.
Yes. And Janice makes a good point in the chat room here on that note, Richard, right? So we do have to be careful. Obviously, there's some lines here, so there's some boundaries here. And
That's what I
we had
said.
an employee's girlfriend call our HR making a complaint because he was married to someone else.
Oh, see, that's
Oops.
just not something we need to get involved with, is it?
No. Now,
And that's
this
That's why we
topic,
have an
gentlemen.
HR department.
Sorry?
That's why we have an HR department.
That's why we direct it to HR. I was going to say, Sanjay, this topic it was always on my radar, but I think it came more onto my radar many, many years ago when I had a client in the energy field who was talking about remote workers and the challenges of dealing with retention with remote employees working out in these, oil sand camps in northern Alberta, away from their families for a long time. What they glommed onto to ridiculously, radically improve their retention rates was to connect with the employees' families better. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's not even the right way of saying it. Was it just a matter of connecting to the employee's family, but considering the family in their decisions?
Acknowledging that they're part of a family.
Yeah, with their culture, with their scheduling, with everything. And they said, as soon as we did that, as soon as we took that view, that lens, that, these people are flying sometimes from another country, from across Canada to be away from their families for 2 weeks at a time, 3 weeks at a time. We have to think about the impact on their families. If we can offer services, programs that make the families' lives easier when they're away, if we can just do things to even make sure we're considering the families in our decisions, they found it had a huge impact on employee retention rates.
I think the key word there is considering. It's not a matter of mandating or forcing or obliged to bring the family to the company picnic, but It's a matter of showing that we know that it could be part of your life, and then being flexible enough to go, hey, for some people or for some organization, it's really important, and there is that level of expectation that you bring the family to the picnic, and in others, it's no, that's not how we fly here, and it's about be able to express that and articulate it in a way that the people go, hey, I like that, it resonates with me, I have buy-in, I want to be part of and play in this sandbox.
Yeah. One of the great stories that I know, and unfortunately, it was not it's not a first person story. My business partner and co-author, Bill Catlett, co-author of Contented Cows Still Give Better Milk. Oh, did I say that? Yeah. Bill was in HR with FedEx before I met him, and many years ago. And he tells a great story. There was somebody who had relocated there to Memphis, and he had a brand new baby, like less than a month old, and the man's wife and other child and this brand new baby, they were coming in and they were getting set up in a temporary apartment before they were able to get into their home. And Bill just dropped by on that day. And the guy said, hey, we're moving in and here's the address and all that. So he was welcome to come. Bill dropped by on the day that they were moving in, and the guy, how are you doing? Is there anything I can get for you? And he didn't ask for anything, but the guy said, oh, we got here, and the one thing that we forgot to bring was formula for the baby and things like that. Well, Bill just simply went out to Walmart or something, got diapers, formula, some food, stuff like that, brought it back to them, some milk and stuff, and said, here, I hope this is going to make your first day better. It wasn't a program. It wasn't something he planned to do. He saw a need and he connected with it. That was 35 years ago. Bill is still in touch with this man. And every time he talks to him, the man talks about the milk and the diapers. So those kinds of things make a huge difference.
Those connections are the key. I'm reminded of when I was student council president in high school. one of the things we thought would just be fun. We didn't even we weren't doing it from this grandiose understanding of connecting people and the whole body experience. We thought, hey, why don't we get one of the teachers to dress up like Santa Claus, get the teachers that have young kids to bring their kids and give us gifts, and then Santa Claus will give them to the teachers, to the teachers' children. And very simple thing. We did it in one night. It took us 3 hours or whatever it was. But the teachers just raved about it. Oh, what a wonderful student council. Oh, and it doesn't have to be a big deal, but just the act and the understanding of being aware and kind of going, how do we make these people know that they're part of something? Again, it's not mandated, it's not forced, it's just that we're considering them.
Right. Yeah. And for those of you that are new to Every Other Wednesday, when Sanjay tells his high school stories, that was 3 years ago.
Right. Very recently. Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah. You know, one of the phrases that I use when I talk about families of employees is, I like to think of them, and realistically, this is the case, I think, is they are part of your support team.
Yeah.
And if you have the support team on your side, of course, things are going to be better. But think about this, right? If you've got you're asking employees during a crazy period to work a lot of overtime, or you've got employees that have to travel a lot for their job, it has a huge impact on families. And we have to acknowledge that and recognize that they are part of your support team. And the more your family is on side with your employees, I think the more successful you're going to be. In fact, a quick story on that. A company that I've referenced, well, I won't reference the company's name because this is an individual person's story, so I don't want to do that. But CEO of this company told me about how their CFO, their chief financial officer, got headhunted and offered double the salary for what he was being paid. And the CEO said, well, you know the numbers, probably more than I do. We can only do so much with your salary, double the salary. I can't compete with that. So then the CEO said, and he was being pretty strategic when he said this, I think, why don't you go home and talk to your spouse? And then talk to me in the morning. And he knew what he was doing, because what happened, went home, talked to the spouse, the employee came back, the CFO, and said, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm happy here. And the CEO said, well, what happened? Well, I talked to my spouse, and my spouse said, you're not going anywhere. You have never been happier. You have never been more fulfilled. I don't care about the money. You've never been healthier. I want you healthy, happy, and to have a sense of meaning in your life. That's far more important to me. We don't need the money. We need a healthy dad and husband. And so we stay.
And that's the thing about money. If you look at a lot of surveys and research around that, they say up to a certain level, money is a motivator. Then beyond that, it actually doesn't help. So, I mean, as long as you're eating well and you have, your sneakers rip, you can go buy a new pair, fine. There's a certain level. Then beyond that, the difference between an extra $1,000 a year is so insignificant. That's when things like health and mental wellness and family and all that come into play. So a few things here from within the chat box. Jen is saying, my dad ran a business and gave out years of service awards at the Christmas party to acknowledge the support of family, which is a fantastic idea. Stuart asks this, what do you do when most of your family lives with mental health issues? And I mean, my initial reaction is the same thing. You acknowledge them, you bring them as, you make them part of the experience. But what, you guys have anything to add on that?
No, I'm not sure. Is it what does the employer do when most of an employee's family lives with mental health issues, or what does the employee do when their family lives with mental health issues? I don't know what we as employers can do except to always be supportive, and that really leads into, I think, a question that we all have to ask, and that is about listening. So there's a lot of not concern, but there's a lot of kind of discussion in the chat about, which I completely agree with, is this is not about probing and, okay, we can't ask you anything before we hire you, but now sit down. Now tell me, are you married? What gender is your spouse? How old are your kids? Things like that. No, you don't ask that at all. You listen. And if you have a good relationship with your employees, people will reveal what they wish to reveal to you. And if we're not listening, then it comes off as being very callous and uncaring, because somebody says, I'm at home and my spouse is there, and I have a child who has perhaps has autism, and that is one reason why, sometimes we have some challenges and things like that. Well, if someone is on my team and I know that about them, I'm gonna approach them perhaps in a different way than someone who may tell me, hey, I'm single, I don't have any children, and it's not that one gets more consideration or advantage or the other, but they do find themselves in different situations, and those situations show up at work. And so, as a good leader, I want to be sensitive to those and just find out, how can I help? How can I help you with that? Right. So I have a thing that I said, there are 11 questions. I'm not going to give you all 11. There are 11 questions I think every good manager should know about, the answers to which every good manager should know about the people on his or her team without even asking. And one of those is, who are the important people in your life? So listen to that, be sensitive to that, and then respond. I also love what's being said in the in the chat about if someone is traveling, we tend to arrange for a dinner for the family as an extra thank you. And I have heard other twists on that. It's not just if they're traveling, but somebody who's maybe working super long hours, to send something to the family. I heard someone say, oh, well, a really good thank you is somebody who's working a long time, working long hours, send them a gift card to their favorite restaurant. And the twist on that was, no, send a gift card to their spouse's favorite restaurant. And that way you make the employee a hero too, because he or she comes home and the partner or the spouse says, oh, look what we got from your work.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. And I love how you connected those things, Richard, right? It's about respect and that whole idea of listening and just showing that you care about the person beyond them being a work unit in your company. You care about them as a real human being. And that we know from research that's one of the most important things we can do as leaders. But that connecting, gifts for the kids, for the spouses, that can be so powerful. You make the employee a rock star, and it demonstrates that you've listened to them and you know what's going on in their lives, right?
Yeah. And not only that, but I mean, if you want to be selfish from an organizational standpoint, you go, well, why would I invest or waste the money on an extra dinner here and an extra dinner there? Well, it was the story you were just telling, Mike, is this idea of, they said, go back and talk to your significant other. By making those small investments, your turnover is going to go down, right? Your need to train new employees because of the turnover, it's going to go down. So a $50, $100 gift certificate, or it doesn't even have to be, it's not necessarily even about money. It could be the employee of the month hat that's recycled, or a plaque that you engrave someone's name into and it goes up on a wall. I mean, the most supportive spouse, boom, goes up there, then all of a sudden you have buy-in and support for those people wanting to be part of this amazing organization.
Yeah. And broadening out the definition, as Richard said, family can mean all sorts of different things. It reminded me of this salesperson I met years ago, whose primary client was to farmers, basically in the agricultural industry. And he was talking to me afterwards, and he said, so who's one of the most important family members to a farmer? And I said, the spouse. He said, no. He was smiling at me. He said, you know what I've learned listening to these guys over the year? The dog or dogs. So
I thought you were going to say the cow, and I was getting interested in that.
No cow. Sorry, Richard, but dogs, right? I mean, so he started sending happy birthday cards and gifts to the dogs.
That's brilliant.
Right. And they loved it. They loved it.
My daughter would love that. I may have to suggest to her employer that they give that a try. Yeah.
But it comes from listening and respect. And use the word family, but that's not the absolute right word, because when we think family, we think blood relation or legal relation. It's who are the people or creatures that are part of the employee's aura within their circle. And it could be a dog, and it could be your Peloton bike, and it could be a significant other. And they're all equally important because they're important to that person. And so by showing an interest and considering them or it actually endears you and creates a stronger bond, and it increases your productivity of your workforce.
Yeah. And I think it's something companies should think about right at the hiring and onboarding stage. In fact, when you're promoting your culture, talk about if you do anything that connects with your employees' families. If you consider yourself a family-friendly organization, put that front and center as one of your values. Talk about some of the fun things you've done, some of the ways you connect with it. And even if you're trying to attract employees, say, to your town to move, well, then you need to do a marketing job on, hey, our community, our city is a great place for young families to grow up, and here's why.
That's right. Celia is asking everyone that Celia works for a very family-friendly company, and she's saying, anyone have any sites you love for specific gifts, like the chocolate-covered fruit company? Celia, if you get any chocolate-covered fruit company, we don't live that far apart, so help a brother out, right? But are there any other ideas of websites for creative employee gifts? So if anybody out there listening has an answer for Celia, we and Celia would all love to hear that. Yeah. I heard a story of an organization. It was an accounting firm, and it wasn't small, but it wasn't huge. And the CEO read an article in the paper that some 17-year-old young man had won the state high school wrestling championship, and it was an unusual last name. And he said, don't we have someone here? I have seen that name. Don't we have that last name here? I wonder if it's related. He went and asked him and said, oh yeah, that was Carol. Carol's son won the whole Wisconsin State High School Wrestling Championship. Isn't that great? The CEO wrote a letter to the son. He didn't go to mom and say, hey, can I send your son a letter? He took it on himself. He wrote a letter to the son. Mom comes home from work that day, and this was back when people went into the office, and it comes home and the son is standing at the door. Mom, look what I got in the mail today from the CEO of your company. That's the kind of thing that people remember. And I often say, when you're talking about retention, not just so much on the recruiting, but on the retention end, when people begin to look at greener pastures, when they start to get that wandering eye, you want them to ask, okay, but so there's a pretty good deal over there, but could I get this over there, whatever this is? And sometimes this is those kinds of thoughtful expressions that are related to family.
Yeah, I love that. And you reminded me, this is an old story, so I apologize if I'm going to get some of the details wrong, but I always remembered this story from the book Nuts about Southwest Airlines, and Herb, the original CEO, founder, Herb Keller, and talked about a story in the book where I believe it was an aviation mechanic who had just started with them. He was maybe 3 weeks, a month on the job, and his mother was gravely ill, terminally ill, in the hospital. And he goes to visit his mother, and there's a bouquet of flowers and a handwritten card from the CEO of the company that he's just started working for. Now, does that make an impression on someone? Mm-hmm. Do you think, okay, this is a company I want to hang out with? Yeah. That's right. Oh, so Sandy is answering Celia's question in part with O.C. Tanner. I should have thought about that. I should have had a V8 or a chocolate covered strawberry. But yeah, so that's a good resource. Thank you, Sandy, for that. Very cool.
By the way, what is that name of that chain that does the chocolate covered strawberries? Right? I can't. There's one like
something edibles, incredible edibles. Oh, that's something else.
Something edibles.
Edible
arrangements.
Be careful. This is a family program.
Edible arrangements. It's clean.
David and Harry. Oh, that's another good one. Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. Good. Or Harry and David. Either one. Yeah.
So one of my favorite examples of a company that really connects with its families is Beryl Health Call Centers in Bedford, Texas, outside of Dallas. And they have a lot of single moms working for them. It's a 24/7 call center, but they very intentionally connect with the families and the kids, especially because they're single moms. So they have all sorts of programs in place. And this is kind of some of the cool stuff we can do, right? They put up artwork from the kids. That's how they've decorated their workspace with nicely framed, so it looks like an art gallery, for goodness sakes. It's not just taped onto the wall, but this is all their kids' artwork. And then they hold a Halloween event at their building, and they get I couldn't believe it when they told me this. They get something like 600 kids come and trick or treat and attend their Halloween function.
Yeah.
But they go out of the way to connect with the kids of their employees. And of course, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Sometimes when people talk about, well, what about people who don't have a family and all that? Are they at a disadvantage? I heard I didn't hear a story. I experienced something with a CEO of a company and it was a fairly small company, and he could kind of, he had some flexibility and so forth. And there was a person who was in sales, really high performer. Suddenly their performance started to go down. And so he actually talked to the salesperson and said, hey, what's the deal? You've always been so great. And now we see, is there something, I don't want to probe. I don't want to, I don't want to pry, but if there's something wrong, I hope you'll let us know so we can help you. And he said, well, actually there is. He said, my son is failing in school. He's like in middle school, and he's just failing, and it's creating all kinds of havoc in the family. And he's always been a good student, but there's just this particular thing, and he just can't get it. So the CEO hired a tutor for the kid to, and within 6 months, the kid had it. Everything was much better. And guess what? Dad's performance started going back up where it was. Somebody found out about it and said, well, you didn't give my kid you didn't pay for my kid to have a tutor. And the CEO said, you don't even have any kids, so shut up. I thought, well, that might have been an indelicate way of putting it. But, there is that issue of people talking about favoritism. If you do this for one, how can you do it for another? I just think as a leader, and it's difficult with a large corporation. It is. There are compliance issues. There are all kinds of things. You have to be careful of the appearance of things. But in many employers that do have some autonomy to do those kinds of things, I would say just ask yourself, is this gonna help my employee? If so, if you feel it's the right thing to do it.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, Richard, and I've heard those arguments like say, well, we're letting Susan go home early at 3 this afternoon because her kid's got a special thing going on. And then somebody going, well, why don't I? Right. And, you figure those things out. You work it out somehow. But we have to remember there's a difference between treating everyone equally and treating everyone fairly and with compassion.
Exactly.
Recognizing the different circumstances that people are in.
I was about to go there too, that whole equal versus fair. And the reality is people earn their stripes. And if Sally got to go home at 3, it's because she deserved to go home at 3. And, like you're saying, this guy was a top performer and he was slipping. So he said, what's the problem? The problem is my kid's failing. Okay, well, and forget it's the right thing to do, because we already are on that board.
Sure,
But it's the business right thing to do as well. He increased the performance of this employee, got him back up from a couple $100 worth of tutoring. Is it a smart investment? It's a no-brainer. And so sometimes we forget that. And whereas it's not well, I have 3 kids, I have 3 sons, and that is, it's king of well, how come he got an ice cream sandwich? And I always go back to, wait a minute, that's not your question. Your question isn't how come he got an ice cream sandwich. The question is, can I have an ice cream sandwich? And so what I try to always emphasize is you ask the question and then we'll figure out how to get there. So it's not that how come he got tutoring, it's, well, how do I get a special bonus or a special privilege? And then the answer is you earn it. You become of this level of performance, and then boom, then you get these privileges. And I think people intuitively know that, but sometimes people are just wired to complain because, oh, they got this and I want this. And it's not about everyone getting treated equally, it's about everyone getting treated fairly.
So Sanjay, some unsolicited parenting advice for you, if you don't mind. Next time one of them says that, how come just with a total deadpan say, because he's my favorite? And that tends to, I've found that
and then
works
that just squashes it. That just nips it in the butt.
Yeah, it just
nips no more issues.
Future. Yeah. No.
Well, and
Mike, you should write a parenting book.
From me, Sanjay, is just give them the ice cream sandwich. Okay.
Yeah. What I actually usually I default to is I just eat the ice cream sandwich in front of them.
There you go.
Hey, I want to flip this conversation around for a moment, because here's one thing I also kind of semi-facetiously suggest to my clients is, I use the phrase support team, but I've also used the phrase sometimes, as I say, semi-jokingly, that don't forget that your employees' families are sometimes free consultants. So leverage your employees' family, include contests. If you've got contests going on within your organization, why not in some kind, and of course there's lots where it's not going to be appropriate, but some, sure they will be. Why not make it a family affair and say, hey, we're opening this up to your kids, your family, You got
Kinda
whoever
fun.
comes up with the best slogan for this
Oh,
new
okay.
initiative we're doing, or project name, or
Sure.
something fun, something that tends to be more fun, then turn it into a family fair. There's actually a Fluor office in California. They include once a year, they include kids in some brainstorming sessions where they brainstorm all these serious different ideas, and they bring kids in just to add this fresh perspective. So there's some cool ways we can leverage our support team as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And I know we weren't going to talk about the C word as any more than we had to.
Cookies?
No,
cake
in this session, but during the pandemic, there has been so many opportunities to do exactly the kinds of things that we're talking about. And I think before, when remote working was considered kind of exotic and a little bizarre and a little unusual and so forth, everybody tried to have this create this facade that they were here in the office and all that, and then it kind of things March 20th 2020, everything kind of swung the other direction, and there were kids running through in various states of undress, running across the screen and all this kind of stuff. And so, but I think, like you said earlier about something, Mike, people figure it out. And I think there's some organizations, there's some managers, there's some cultures that are so uptight about that kind of thing, when in fact, come on, give us a break. Especially till we're trying to figure all of this out. But as you said earlier, Sanjay, it really is about the whole person. And if you're working remotely and you are employing a whole person, and that whole person has children who can't go to school now because maybe their school is on quarantine, or whatever the situation is, you work with it and you say, what is our objective? Our objective is to create a great place to work, because we know that when that happens, our organization will be more successful. So let's work with it and let's see what we can do, rather than, again, being so uptight about it.
Yeah. Right on. Bang on, Richard. I mean, the lines were always blurred, I think. Now they're almost invisible with so many people. They're gone, right? So let's be more accommodating, more adaptable, but also let's use this as an opportunity. So if you're recognizing one of your employees, for example, virtually, it's never been easier to include their family members. It's never been easier to include, if they've got parents living overseas in Scotland, somewhere exotic like that, you get them on the Zoom call. I mean, how cool is that, right?
Yeah.
You can include the family members in things like never before, because it's that much easier.
Yeah. If I can tangent, you were talking about, the lines have been blurred. I'm curious from your guys' perspective, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, I think you have to I think it's just a thing. I think it's just reality. And I think you have to also take your lead from your employees. Again, if there are people who want those lines to be very, very bold and dark and solid, then, and without any stigma or anything, then absolutely. But if those lines have become blurred, then again, don't make the employee feel uncomfortable or self-conscious because they have, maybe their background is not the most, ready for prime time Zoom kind of thing, and then offer them support if they would like to have a better area, that kind of thing. It's about offering people support and do what they can and want to do.
Yeah. And I love what Leona just wrote in the chat box about a son wandering in and waving and everyone wanting to meet them. I can't believe the conversations that have happened where people have said, "Oh, it's so unprofessional for somebody's cat to wander into this."
I know, yeah.
Oh, for goodness sakes, give me a break. Lighten up, people. It's the frig. I would want to stop the meeting and get the name of the cat if I was leading.
Right, yeah, that's right. I was doing a virtual presentation for a group, and there was a man and his wife had gone off to work in an office, an actual leaving the house, and left him with 3 sons. I thought of you, Sanjay, although all sons were younger than your sons. And they were all this, and he was trying so hard, to be professional and all this. And finally, one of his children came up, looked into the Zoom camera and all that, and everybody just melted. They said, "Oh, let's see him, let's talk about him," and everybody loved it. So yeah, I think you're going to find, for the most part, people are kind and people are caring and people want to, as Leona said, it started her day off with a smile. It started everyone's day off with a smile in that presentation.
If I could be mathematical for a minute.
Because I was so good. It was because they really loved the child being in there.
If I could be mathematical for a minute. So I've had my
You've
kids
been mathematical all your life.
I've had my kids since they were very little. And I
Since
went through
the beginning,
phase of, yeah, exactly. I went through this phase of, oh my goodness, if they walk on, if I'm having a call and they walk, it's unprofessional, or if I'm on it because it wasn't as much video stuff, but on the phone, if they were making noise in the background, and I used to always get scared of it. I'm like, shh, you gotta be quiet, because I was often caring for them. And then I got to this point was, hold on, authentically, that's part of who I am, that they are part of me. And then I realized that rather than trying to be scared of it, but to embrace it. And what I found was, just from a mathematical standpoint, most people either have kids or have had kids or have brothers or sisters who have kids, and they can all relate to it.
Or they were a kid.
Or, well, yes, I agree. I agree most people were a kid, but this doesn't give them the same relatability.
Right.
But what I found is it actually is a much more endearing thing. And in fact, people will say to me, hey, can we do this call? And then I would often start off with, yes, I'm happy to meet at that time. However, I have my kids in the background. So if you're okay with the occasional yelling in the background, it's all on the up and up. And the reaction is always like, oh my goodness, I would love to. My eldest just graduated is off to school, and I love hearing the screams and the yells and all that opportunity to be, again, that whole body, that whole person, not just a professional work person that's a two-dimensional character, but a person that has their kids walk across naked or farts on camera or whatever it is. People go, oh yeah, I remember that, or oh yeah, I live that. And either way, it embodies, it endears them to one another.
And usually it's Richard who farts on camera, so it's nice to have it.
Sanjay, do you know Jill because she's saying Matt from Sanjay? And then you said, shut up, Jill. I know, I was really kind of hoping that my niece, my niece has her two children over here at her parents' house, the grandparents' house, and they are so cute running around here. I really was hoping one would open the door and
accidentally burst in.
Yeah, but
because we don't have kids here anymore. I just rent a neighbor's kid to try and humanize myself. So.
I've actually started a business. I rent my kids out. So next time you need one, Mike.
Yeah, but it's true, isn't it? Isn't that? And I make this point in some of my talks sometimes is when you see a colleague, a coworker out in the real world, and the first time you see them, maybe with their children, there's a humanizing element to them. Exactly, right? You see them in their natural element. You look and you think, oh my God, they had children. They procreated.
You see them in their tank top with mustard stains, and it's endearing.
But you see them as a mother, a father, a sister, a child, right? And it's so. Hey, and on that note too, I was thinking about the flip side of this. Michael Abrashoff, who wrote the brilliant book, whose title escapes me. It's right over my shoulder somewhere.
It's about a boat. There's a boat involved. Yeah.
Yes. Lead this. Yes. I reference it every friggin' day of my life, and I can't remember the title. But he talks about. I interviewed him for the Humor Advantage, actually, and he talked about the power of writing handwritten appreciation cards, but not necessarily just to the employees or to the crew members, but to the family members of employees on shore. So, and now think about that situation. A lot of young, late teen, early 20s, sometimes from troubled backgrounds working on these ships. Think of how powerful that would be if their parents get a handwritten card from the commanding officer saying, wow, I just want to let you know what your child did last week to rock it. We're so proud of him or her, and you should be too. You have raised a fine young lady or gentleman.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be from the military. It can certainly apply in the workplace as well, in the civilian place, place. Yeah.
You see Carol's comment. So the other side of that is not wanting to see them as human. I have a friend who has a pilot's license. When I fly, I want to believe that the pilot is God. So yes, there you've got to balance that.
Well, the flip side of what I keep thinking of too, the flip side on this whole conversation, when I'm doing a workshop, an inspiring workplace workshops, and I get people to brainstorm and list all the ways work gives them a sense of purpose. There's always some smartass who says, work, one of the main reasons why I like work is it gets me away from my family.
Well, there's that.
Hate my family for 10 hours.
And I know it's tongue in cheek, but I actually, there's a healthy element to that. It's
Sure.
like,
Sure.
in a relationship, you need to have your own stuff, right? Everything can't be always together. You go crazier.
Yeah. But I think a lot of what we're saying here is that it really does help kind of, it rounds out the picture for those who want to have their picture rounded out. It rounds it out and says, yeah, this is more of who I am. And this shows up at work, you know, whether work is a physical place or remote, this shows up at work. As you said at the very beginning, Mike, you know, if you've just had an argument, or if, you know, one of my 11 questions is, how do you get to work find out, how does the person get to work every day? Do they drive? Do they carpool? Do they take public transportation? You know, is there a lot of traffic, or is it an easy ride? Because all of that affects the person. And the same thing, I think, is true of the family, that it all makes who you are. And the more you understand who your teammates are, the better you can respond and serve and create a better situation for all.
Right. I love that, Richard. And not just family, right? Like, if we can learn, like what are they passionate about? What are their hobbies? Oh, you play the trombone. How cool is that?
What questions? Because you're asking all those right questions.
Yeah, exactly. Do you do any volunteer work? What charities are you involved in?
What's important to you? Yeah.
What matters to you? That's a great way of framing it, right?
The key is to listen and then act on it and reflect it back, and not reflect it back by repeating what they said, but reflect it back by, this is a charity. So you know what? For the winter gift, we're donating $50 to that charity in your name.
Right.
So how are you acting on it and listening to the person so that they felt, my goodness, they actually legitimately listen to me. They actually legitimately care.
Yeah. There's the name of the company. This is what happens when you have 2 hours of sleep 2 nights in a row. You start to forget things. The name of the company escapes me, but they have this wonderful tradition when they onboard new employees. And I think this is a cool way to, so they change the questions. So questions probably similar to some of yours, Richard, but with every new employee, they change up the questions. So they're never the same. So like, what album would you take on a deserted island? Those kind of questions. Mm-hmm. And then what they do at the end of the first week of any new hires, first week on the job, they have a gathering to welcome that new person or people if there's more than one. And they have a trivia contest where existing employees compete for prizes to demonstrate how much they learned about the new people coming to work for them. So they'll ask, okay, Bob just started with us on Monday. What is Bob's favorite sitcom of all time? And whoever knows the answer gets a point. And I think that's an awesome way to kind of, you encourage everyone to connect with new people as quickly as possible.
Personally, it would encourage me to run a black market. If Bob was working for me, I would say, whatever answer I give, you better say it's right.
And then, of course, Linda's saying, what's an album? Okay, yeah, well, right. Can you believe we have less than 2 minutes before we have to sign off here?
What? No. What? That's crazy talk, Richard.
I know, that's right. And it's because I'm 5 hours ahead of you, Sanjay, and 7 hours ahead of you, Michael. So anyway.
Wow. Do you know what the scores are in the 5 hours ahead? Oh, they have a...
I'll let you know. Yeah, but so it will soon be every other Thursday. But listen, so we will be back in 2 weeks on September the 22nd. At that point, I plan to be in my office in Jacksonville, Florida, having completed our vacation over here. And as always, we will let you know what our topic is going to be at that point. And I think we may even have Jeff Tobe. We may even have a full complement on September the 22nd. Is it 14 days from now?
That is correct.
That's right. Great.
Sanjay's the math guy. Ask Sanjay. 8 plus.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, as always, we really appreciate everybody who was here. And please bring 6 or 8 of your closest friends and coworkers and family members to us. And we'll see you in 2 weeks, right?
Every other Wednesday.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Right. So from merry old England, cheerio.
Cheerio.
Bye.
From the Canadian Rockies, as we say in the Canadian Rockies, bye.
And as we say in Toronto, get out of my face.
All right.